This is my first podcast. I'm really happy to be here with a good friend of mine, Bobby Collins. Bobby and I have known each other for a little over 25 years. He was one of the first people to come in to start classes with me when I started up at USA Training Center in San Diego in 98. Yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is just how we met, a little bit about the martial arts and the new pivot that we're making here in Jing Shen. Welcome to my very first podcast. Stay with us. These will be time-stamped. You can jump through at any time. What got you first to come into Jing Shen? How did you find out about it?
I was living in Poway. I'd done wrestling in high school a little bit, and then I got into jiu-jitsu out there in Poway, and I moved out to Mission Beach, and I hadn't done a whole lot of like stand-up, just like fights at school, boxing with my friends, didn't really have much into it. Had boxing on the sign outside, and I was close by, so let me check it out. I ran into you, and you said, yeah, I could teach you boxing, but I could also teach you something else. And it was just like, brought me to Jing Shen and integrating Wing Chun with Western boxing. I mean, I was sold right there. Then you told me later after that first meeting, you're like, I don't think he'd come back. And then I was there and I was hooked. So
yeah,
it was good.
25 years later. Now, before you came in, you said you were in high school and you did the fight club, right? You made a fight club after the movie?
Yeah, after the movie, I tried to make a fight club. I brought out a bunch of the wrestler guys and a bunch of the Mexican Vato guys that I was kind of friends with. And I tried to bring us all together and put together a little fight in this sewer drainage ditch. Brought out a boombox, playing some like hardcore music and stuff. And the wrestlers started wrestling, and the Mexican guys were kind of giving them a hard time because it wasn't like what they were expecting. And then I was like, all right, this ain't going as planned. I told one of the Mexican guys, hey, I'll fight one of you guys. I gave him a look just before he kicked off, like, hey, we're going to, take this easy. He just started swinging, nailed me right in the face, and I got pissed. We just went toe to toe for about 2 minutes, just like slugfest. When it was all said and done, his lips split open like the Predator. My eyes busted shut. My nose is bleeding. Knuckles are all swollen. And I'm like, whew, I'm winded. I turn around, look at the guys, and I'm like, all right, who's up next? All of my wrestlers were like, yeah, I'm not into this. I'll just turn around and walked off. I just hung out with the Mexicans for the rest of the day. We just chilled in the sewer drainage ditch and drank 40s. It was pretty funny. My fight club moment.
Yeah, you knew that at that time. I was with Duza and Kingsley. We had PlayStation 2 at the time. We were doing the characters for the Fight Club video game that was supposed to come out. It died off because it was a turnover between PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3. Yep. So the game never really went to fruition.
Right.
How did you get into making the decision to go and become a Green Beret? Tell us a little bit about that background.
While I was in college, I went up to Humboldt. I was finishing up my degree up there in Humboldt. I was going toward being a high school English teacher. I was working with troubled youth. I don't know. I started like looking at like great, SF, and thought it would be cool to be able to jump out of airplanes for, a paycheck and scuba dive and do all that stuff. And we're there shooting, blah, 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 all that. I was looking into it. I started talking to a recruiter while I was up there, but I was about to also get married at the time. So after about 4 months of talking to a recruiter, he asked me like, I was talking to my ex and I was like, hey, we're going to get married. She's like, you're about to marry me and then join the military? And I was like, yeah, dumb idea. So I dropped it. And it was funny because the recruiter told me, he said, I guarantee within 6 months you'll be in the Army. I was like, never going to happen, bro. But thanks. Sorry for wasting your time. And then a few months later, 9/11 happened. And then I think we were in LA. We were living out in Chatsworth at the time, right after we got married. We came down from Humboldt. And then we did 6 months in Chatsworth. And then she got sick of that area, and then we moved to Colorado. And then it just happened to be at some bar one night. And she was talking to some guy who was in the Army, and she was like, man, there's a lot of benefits. There's this, that. She's like, have you ever thought about it? I said, no, I kind of dropped it. And she's like, well, if you want to jump back into it and look into it. The next day I went to recruiter. I was like, hey, how do I go SF? And, it was a little bit of a process. It didn't work out at first. I ended up like not getting into the SF program. I went straight into the regular Army. My recruiter didn't know what he was doing, screwed me up. I did a year in the regular Army. First chance I got, I went to selection, made it, and I spent the rest of my career at SF. So
nice. Of the courses you did, what kind of courses did you do for SF?
Yeah. I mean, I did a million courses, so many. As far as martial arts style was, though, during the Q course, they had the lines fighting. So like while I'm going through the training, they're teaching how to do lines. On my first deployment, I was the lines instructor. So I had 100 Ethiopians in front of me. I'm on this huge platform and I'm teaching lines to my boss told me, I said, I wanted to teach something like along the lines of Jing Shen. He's like, we got to teach them lines. That's what we're doing. He said, you teach them lines. When you're done, you can teach them anything else you want. So I was like trying to get through the lines so I could get to the Jing Shen part, which I got to near the end, but I ended up getting hurt on the deployment and getting sent home before it was over. It's funny because I was friends with the lead combatives instructor out there, and one of his guys did something stupid and screwed up my arm, like a piece of shrapnel went in my arm. I got sent home, and he was so pissed at that guy that he beat the guy's arms with a stick. They were
No
basically
way.
broken. The next day, that guy didn't show up to training. My team thought he had killed him because he was that pissed at the guy for basically injuring his training partner and main instructor and then getting him sent home. So I thought it was pretty funny. Anyway, yeah, so I did lines in the Q course. Then, I mean, I would do jujitsu with some of the guys that were still into it. There was like combatives, like courses that like there were you could go to that were on base. It would be like a jujitsu guy who would be running it. And it was very like jujitsu based, you know, MACP, like military army combatives program. I did a couple of those, but yeah. And then it was like SOC-P and Special Operations Combat program or combatives program. And that's a lot more like geared towards CQB and being in full kit and being able to like, you know, handle a person coming into a room really quick, dynamically with a team, pinning a guy to a wall so that everyone can clear the room and then handling that person. It as a team as well. Cause like fighting one guy with two people sounds easy, but like, you know, when everybody's in kit, it's all chaotic. Sometimes guys get in the way of each other. And one guy's trying to, you know, they're both trying to take the guy's legs and you have to like think about a little bit. You've seen like cop videos of cops, so the guys getting away from two cops because they're completely uncoordinated. They're not
right.
Yeah, I did that. I got to go to 2 lone operator courses out in Colorado. It's kind of like going into a country by yourself and being able to defend yourself. The first half of the day would be combatives, or it would switch it up. Some days it would be combatives till lunchtime, and after lunch it was on the range, pistol shooting, all concealed carry stuff. But I loved it. I mean, it was just down and dirty. It's just, you know, getting the guy off, hit you, basically, you know, getting offline, take him to the ground, basically stomping his face in. And then we'd do a lot of like in the vehicle stuff. And the guy would basically take his seatbelt and like wrap around your neck and pull you back. And then you'd have to like, all right, go. And I mean, I loved it. I was like in my element doing that. After my second time there, he's like, you're really into it. You want to do this with me, you know, and like come out here and work with me if you get out. And I was like, I mean, he basically beat the shit out of his training partners all the time. I was like, man, I'm not going to be your beat, you know, to get beat on all the
Right.
by your gut, by you. I enjoy doing it, but he could see my passion and love for the scrapping, you know. Now that's all the formal stuff. And then like anytime I could, like I'd go to do open mat and just roll with the guys. They had a 82nd Airborne. The infantry guys had a combatives like gym. And it's funny because I mean, I was in SF and I'd go there at lunchtime and like you could do stand up with some of the guys, whatever you want to do. And there's guys doing stand up kickboxing. The guys were doing, you know, limited strikes, take you to the ground, grappling. And the other guys were just doing grappling. And I would go against all those guys. And I'd get my ass whooped by those guys. I'd come back drenched in sweat because all they did for the Army was train for combatives. Like that's it. They were competing and they did it all day long. I mean, as much as I loved it, I just can't compete against a guy who trains 24/7 like that, you know? I'd come back to after lunch drenched in sweat. And my team would be like, Bob, you just got your ass whooped by a bunch of regular infantry kids. I'd be like, bro, you get your ass in there. You're like, I do this all the time and I'm getting whooped. Like I do as much as I can. You guys don't ever do this stuff. You get destroyed in there, believe me. Anyway, but
yeah.
Like now when I'm retired and I'm overseas, I'll go to gyms and be like, hey, can I come in? Sometimes they don't charge me anything. I just like roll with the guys a little bit, do some basics, you know, sparring stuff. I was just in Niger for another job. They had a wrestling gym in there. I'd roll with those guys. I try to stay active as much as I can. I mean, I'd love to like get back into a gym and start really doing it. But like with my crazy schedule right now and like gone so much, like try to put FaceTime in with the kids. It's just kind of hard to like be like, hey, I'm going to pay $250 a month to come once a week. If I can make it, it's just not feasible right now.
I get it. For you guys that are listening that aren't military, CQB is close quarter battle and CQC is close quarter combat. Correct?
Yep.
Thank you for the service. You've gone through all the different systems of self-defense. What do you think of Jing Shen? Do you think it's come together as legitimate self-defense?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, a lot of my concept of being able to like, if being pinned to a wall and being able to break them down and, you know, take their shoulder, pin them to the wall, however I want to do it, take them offline. You know, one of the things I liked about Jing Shen, you always did was, you know, you could be going from striking to, you know, some sort of joint manipulation to a takedown. I mean, it kept the opponent off guard. It wasn't just sitting there striking, going back and forth, and maybe throw a kick once in a while or just going for a takedown. It kept them completely guessing. And that's kind of what I always liked. And I mean, it helped me to stay fluid and even like, you know, scraps I got into later on in life, like, you know, not having to use like all brute force, kind of like breaking down, like, you know, the joints to like be able to like take them down versus just trying to fight strength against grappling and jujitsu guys who just, it's just kind of ingrained for the time that we did it, And like I said, when I'd be overseas, I try and incorporate that and teach guys spiral dynamics.
One of the big things, now that we're both around that age, I'm a little past the 50-year-old mark.
Right behind you.
Having been the way we were like really competitive, we wanted to scrap all the time. Both of us were like scrapper by instinct. I used to do a lot of street fights when I was younger as a kid. But now it starts after 40. When you get around 50, you've got to change your perspective. This is what we're looking at, is making this pivot to design for people that are looking for self-defense. The difference between self-defense specifically is if you look at any system that you have out there, I don't care whether it's MMA, Krav Maga, any kind of system that you have of self-defense, it's not really self-defense because they're teaching these people within a couple of weeks to come in. And if it's a Muay Thai school, they'll learn some Muay Thai. If it's a boxing or an MMA school, they'll learn things that are practical to the ring. But in every one of these, I've seen even the women's self-defense, the problem is that they are sitting on the railroad track right in front of this person.
Yeah.
And they're like inside their shoulders, inside their hips. And in this space, you've got all their weapons. And if you've only been training for a little bit, being in that space is really dangerous, especially here in San Diego with all the military and being close to the border with a lot of drugs coming over. What we've done now is designed a program that the idea of this self-defense is disengagement as opposed to what all the other self-defense systems are, which are actual mutual combat.
Yep.
And if you're in a real situation, that's not going to help you. So what we want to do is work on avoidance using footwork, which has always been a big thing with the Jing Shen programs.
Right.
We've designed a new line of footwork that creates functional situational awareness. Even for you, you're going into medical situations because you're working as a medic as well, right?
Yep.
And if you're in that situation, the situational awareness has to be really top shelf. Tell me the difference between gaining a ring, for instance, your first time going into combat, how your perspective has changed. I remember the stories of you with a group of 6 just walking down the road all geared up and ready to take people down.
Yeah.
Now kids are getting older, you're getting older.
Yeah.
What's changed?
I don't know. I mean, I was just addicted to the fight. I mean, I was kind of like, I wanted to prove myself. Like combat was like, look, I'll throw down. I mean, when I was in the Q course and I was like, which I was really stupid. You should be keeping your shit together, working hard, which I was training all the time. I was studying when I was doing the med course, but like on my off time, man, I was getting in bar fights pretty regularly. I think I was trying to prove myself to guys around. Look, I haven't been to combat yet, but like I throw down any day of the week. But then like got down there, I'd have to be like, okay, like now can you really do it when bullets are whizzing by? And I think I was really cocky the first few firefights we got in because it was always ambushes. Like we started getting shot at and I just get like, really, all right, game on. It was weird until I started seeing casualties and seeing what bullets really do to people. I mean, I saw it in my training in hospitals, but when high power caliber rounds are going through guys and tearing people apart, bombs are blowing up and guys apart, you kind of like, wow, that hurts. It sucks.
Yeah.
It changed my perspective, but I still loved it. It still was like the ultimate combat. This is life and death. You're trying to take my life. I'm trying to take yours. When I'm in a bar fight, I'm not trying to take anyone's life. It's just like, hey man, let's see who's the best man wins kind of things.
Yeah.
In those days, nowadays, I don't go out looking to crap out and stuff, but I do, I know that any day you get your ass knocked out by anybody at any time. So I try to avoid it. But I've had that mindset where I go into a bar or anywhere. I was doing that even back in the day. I look where the exits are. If I have to get out of there quick, what's the best way out? I kind of like scope the room a little bit. I kind of look around the room and see who it could be a problem. I mean, I can spot the baddest dude in the room and I might not really realize, but I don't really see him as a threat because he's not trying to prove something. I look for that guy who might sucker punch me or who's getting drunk and being beer. Either in the old days, I was looking, I'm going to take that guy on before the night's over. Now I'm just like, I'm going to try to avoid that guy. I'm going to stay on this end of the bar. And just, if he comes up, like be ready. And I got my eye on him, so it's just kind of how I've done it. The military helped me hone that a little bit more. Combat, going into areas and like seeing, situational awareness. There's no one around. You're just like, wow, okay, like something's about to kick off,
So one of the great stories, Bobby went up one time. My brother has been in and out of prison and through a lot of situations. He's gone through a rough life. Bobby offered to go up to Ottawa, Canada and visit him one time. What did you think of meeting Nathan?
Yeah, like we were about the same age and he like opens the door in his towel and he's just ripped like from head to toe, just jacked his shells. Damn, like I'm in good shape. He's in wrong. And he had told me, come inside, let me get changed. He's like, I was up all night partying, no big deal. I'm like, just hang out for a minute. We're going to go out and party all night. All right. He comes out. He's like, hey man, you want to see something cool? And he does like this perfect spinning back kick and almost touches the ceiling with his feet, which I couldn't do to save my life. You know, I was like, all right, yeah, game on. Like he can kick, and he's been fighting his whole life. Like, what am I already going to show this guy? You know, and he's like knocking out dangerous dudes on a daily basis, you know? And then we went out and partied that night, and it was an experience, man. I mean, just seeing how he could, you know, we'd go into a place and like, people just could feel his vibe and just like he could just scare anybody just from a look, you know. I was like, that's a bad dude, and they could feel it. I don't know. It was an awesome experience. We partied all night, and I kept being like, hey dude, I got to get back. I had to do a PT test the next morning at 6 a.m. And I was like a 4-hour drive, and he's like, man, a little bit longer. And I'm racing back. I'm hungover, like just dumb. I was sobering up as I'm driving all the way back across the border. I pull in, throw on some workout clothes, pull right up, and I'm standing there like, oh my God. And then I had to go, you know, do my push-ups, sit-ups, and 2-mile run. It was like one of my roughest PT tests I've ever had to do, even back then when I was in good shape. Because I was just like, that was a long night. Like, it was a lot. But yeah, Nate was like, he's a force of nature. It was pretty cool to see that, you know. I didn't really get to show him much in the way of Jing Shen. We tried to at one point, and he was just like, he was in the zone that night. Like, just take the time to do that, but it never really happened.
Well, he grew up learning Jing Shen for a long time.
Yeah.
He was, 9 years younger.
That was pretty quick. There probably wasn't a whole lot I was going to teach him. So, but it was awesome hanging out with him.
It was great. He loved it. One of his favorite memories as well. Now you work as a medic. You're going around teaching, and you've worked with everyone from SEALs to what type of stuff do you do?
So I teach like a little bit of, I mean, mostly it's medical stuff, you know, and then like there's some organizations that have me teaching, you know, tactics, things like that, military tactics, whatever I need to do to like whatever they need. I mean, but mostly I focus on medicine, whether it's tactical medicine, full on field care, like austere medicine, where I'm having to sit on a patient for, you know, 3 days versus I'm just like in Afghanistan, I had maybe a 45-minute turnaround. I had just enough time to get that patient stable. And he's off my hands. Things start crashing on my problem. He's on the bird. It's not anything else. I never had to sit on anyone for, you know, really long time. I had a few patients that was maybe with me for an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. But like I was able to get them pretty stable. It was never like they're crashing on me and I'm like, I'm out of options. So I'm always like staying up on all the newest trends and what's going on. And I'm actually right now in Virginia teaching tactical medicine to a bunch of guys that, you know, trying to keep it incorporated because they're all civilians. So I'm not like, okay, you won't be treating somebody in a firefight and having to drag them behind cover. Then again, there's active shooter scenarios and things like that. I mean, there's 4 of us medics, and the other medics are like 20-year medics. Some are Delta Force medics and stuff like that. They've got a lot of experience. So like, I mean, but I've been teaching this stuff for 20 years. I mean, I can pretty much go in there. I haven't even seen the slides. I'm just go through the slides and I'm like, I've done this, you know, I can teach it pretty easy. If I'm going to have to teach like someone a little higher up, like medics and docs, I got to be a little more on my game. When it's a bunch of guys who barely know any medicine, I can pretty much do that stuff on my sleep.
If you had some of these kids that are listening and looking at going into the military, any advice you give them on directing their pathway, especially if they're going through the Army where you've gone through?
I mean, like, I always thought the Army was one of the better options because there's like 250 some odd jobs in the Army. So if there was something you wanted to do, like you want to go be a doctor, the Army will pay for it. You want to go be a lawyer, the Army will pay for it. You can go be a lawyer in the Army. You want to do it, you know, high speed stuff, like you can sign up, be like, I'm not coming in unless you make me a Ranger or like a Green Beret. Granted though, you got to make it. Like they give you the option if you go through it. Again, they were opening that program where you can come right off the street and go through the Green Beret program, but my recruiter was all new to it and he didn't know what he was doing. It's funny. So I get to basic training. They put me in the barracks with all the guys who were in that program. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just like you guys. And let me see your paperwork. And it says 11 X-ray, which is an infantry guy. And then all there said 18 X-ray, which is the SF thing. And I was like, oh man, I called my recruiter. He's like, oh, my bad, man. Oh, well, have fun. I was like, oh, this is going to suck. So yeah.
As a Green Beret, you worked with all the different SF?
Yeah, I mean, when I do like my refresher training or like I was doing certain schools, the guys would come from other groups. I get to meet guys who work more in like Middle East or work more in Southeast Asia and Philippines and, you know, places like that, Japan, or like the Southcom guys that were down in like, you know, they work all of like South America, Central America, stuff like that. So you get to like talk to guys, see like what they're doing in different areas. Then our big job is we train other people. I was training guys in Ethiopia, I was training guys in Kyrgyzstan, even though I was in Afghanistan and we were doing our fighting. Like when we were fighting, we were training our partner forces because we weren't just going out by ourselves. You know, we were going out with like Afghans and stuff like that. And so, theory, they were supposed to be at the front and like they're fighting for their country and we're just advising them in the back, like, hey, do this, do that. I mean, trainers is what we mostly are, initially. That's pretty much what I'm doing 2 years after retiring. I'm still just teaching people all over the world or pulling med coverage for companies that need medic downrange.
Very nice. So going back to the self-defense stuff and working on people that are our age now or getting up there into 50s and realizing that it doesn't matter. There's joint problems. You've had injuries that come out through the years. You're not as fast. You just don't have the bone density and all these things that are happening. What would your advice be for these guys or seniors?
Yeah. Staying hydrated, bringing stretching, all things I never really did well. I was actually, when I was in Ukraine, talk about getting old. It's freezing cold outside. I've been drinking like energy drinks. I hadn't been drinking much water. I was working out kind of heavy, just doing a lot of like, I don't know, austere workout stuff because I didn't have like gyms. We were traveling all these different places teaching people. And I was doing a demonstration on the range, shooting an M16 in full auto. And I just pulling it with my left arm into my shoulder real tight. I partially tore my bicep tendon. Like I was sitting there, it's like pop, like, whoa. And I'm like, what was that? I'm like, you all right? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I was like, whoa, man. And I'm getting an MRI for $15. For $15, you get an MRI in Ukraine. And they're like, yeah, you partially tore it. If you rest it, it'll heal. And I was like, wow, like something so simple I've done 1,000 times and should cause me no injury. I just hurt myself. But I wasn't staying hydrated. I am getting older. So again, like if you have injuries, I've got 2 knee surgeries on my left knee from the Army. I can't, if I'm throwing a nice, even just a straight jab and got to pivot and do it nicely, I do 10 of those and my knee starts flaring up a little bit. If I'm hitting on the heavy bag where I'm like not jumping, but moving into every punch and just putting that weight on that left knee, on that left leg within like 5 minutes, that knee's like, I could still keep going. If the fight's going for real, the adrenaline kicks in and that pain goes away. I just got to think about when I'm hitting the bag or doing stuff, I got to like adjust how I do it to still get some power into it. And so those are the tricks, of like learning how to maintain some sort of ability to, defend yourself and hurt the other guy. There's no point if you're learning self-defense and you can't cause significant injury to somebody. There's no reason to do it, in my opinion, right? You got at the end of the day, your job is you can defend yourself all day long, but he ain't going to stop until he's tired or someone breaks it up. So there's the other side of it too. If you're like the guy's super passive, not going to like knock guys out left and right, blah, blah. But you got to be able to defend yourself long enough that it can get broken up and you're not like in the hospital, So I've been able to fight guys in a bar. And I've been kicked by a whole bunch of guys. And I was able to just kind of, use the bar stools to the side and like kicked out one of the guy's legs and brought him on top of me. And I was holding his body in front while they were kicking. And finally, like enough guys came in and broke it up. Had I not had any clue what I was doing, I probably would have gotten my head kicked in and been in a coma or worse. That's happened to guys in SF where they were out partying and somebody knocked him out and they just like did a boo party on the guy and he's permanently mentally disabled now because he just like, maybe he was a badass too, but maybe he just got caught off guard and he just got dropped.
It doesn't take much. You could just go back and hit your head or whatever. Somebody goes down, quick knockout, hit the curb.
And then now you escalate stuff too, right? Because I've had times where I could have de-escalated it and it would have been fine. And sometimes like, nah, and I've just like ramped it up. And whereas like, even if something stupid, the guy shoved me and I could be like, all right, dude, you win, but then like, and then he might've been like, all right, cool, whatever. You're a pussy and you walk away. But like, he'd shove me and I'd knock his teeth out. And then he'd be like, oh, you just knocked my teeth out. And then it was game on and it was like a full blown brawl. And I was like, I just ramped this shit up real quick, So yeah, I've seen that happen. Guys will like go for like trying to like crush my throat, I'm like, oh, we're going that game. All right. Stick my finger in your eyeball. It's like, it just goes higher and higher and higher.
Best move ever.
Yeah. So
thumb to the eye, dot the I's and then cross the T's. Yeah. So yeah, I completely agree. The big difference is that I keep saying to all these guys that are all like, oh, these moves that I'm showing are not going to work is that they're talking about mutual combat. They're talking about street fighting. They're talking about standing off. If I'm sitting there and somebody comes up to me and I don't try to leave, if I'm sitting there and I say somebody's mouthing off and I stand my ground, that's going to be mutual combat. Okay. That's where you're going to see, you're going to have your boxing, which you have to train all the time. But if I'm in there and as I get older, my thing is, if it's self-defense, it's about survival. It's not about winning and pride and money. In self-defense, if you're traveling, and the people that I'm really looking at are the baby boomers that are traveling or guys like you that are now retired and hopefully going to have some time for yourself eventually. But you're traveling, you get into second and third world countries, you're visiting the islands and so on, and in the Philippines or wherever, and somebody comes up to you and you start noticing those key things.
Right.
And instead of standing off, like you said, toe to toe, which is that mutual combat, you learn to use positioning of safety, position yourself off the angle so that you can see what's coming around, being able to understand that it's about disengagement.
Real quick story, de-escalation story. Libya, I'm over there and we were out looking at some areas with some of the Libyans, and some of the guys were getting stoned, smoking weed. The Libyan guys were, and they were going into the back of our truck. And for some reason, there was some sensitive equipment in the back of our truck, and they started pulling it out. They didn't grab a bunch, but they grabbed like some night vision goggles. I don't know why they were in the back of the truck, but another guy grabbed one of the radios, and they were like going to walk off with it. I was about to get pissed, and I was like, okay, this could escalate because they all have guns. They're all high. And like, even though we're kind of friends, I get pissed or I make them look stupid or I just knock the guy out or I'm like, give me that back. Would have escalated. And they might be like, fuck. And they could have like gotten ugly. So I came up to like one guy and I like grabbed him by the neck and I was like, hey bro, what's up? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like hitting him in the chest, like real hard. Just like the street's like, Jesus, what's going on? And I was like laughing and joking. And I'm like, yeah, these are cool, right? And I'm like, kind of put the nods on. Like, he was like, he's laughing at me because I was kind of being a goof on him. Like, here, bro, take those. And I'm like, and he was like, what's going on? And I grabbed the other radio. I'm like laughing with the guy. And I was like, here, give me that joint. And I was like, pretending I'm about to hit it. I'm like, here you go, huh? And they're like, awesome. I grabbed the radios. I'm like, all right, dude, we're fucking out of here. Let's go. And they were like, what just happened? And we're like driving away. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like I could have gone way south. I mean, we've had situations in Afghanistan where we got pissed at our guys and we started yelling at them and they yelled at us. The next thing I know, they're in the gun towers and they're turning their machine guns toward us. And I'm like, hey, bro, we need to calm this down. And you make them look dumb in front of their friends. Like you're public enemy number one, and they'll look for a way to take you out. You can't let them walk all over you. You got to find that even ground. But like, you know, like you come off like, you know, fuck you, blah, blah, and you embarrass them in front of a bunch of people. Like you might just get smoked one day while you're teaching training. You gotta like kind of be careful with that out there at least.
And in that's a perfect example. In a self-defense situation, the definition is that you're probably going against somebody stronger, faster, younger, more aggressive, more flexible, trained, and competitive, like that young competitive athlete, especially in San Diego, where it's the mecca of MMA.
Absolutely.
You've got to be really careful around here. If you're now the baby boomer in your 60s and 70s and you were saying, oh, I've got my 5th degree black belt, let me tell you, I don't care. If you haven't been training regularly, the belt doesn't matter. It's something that doesn't matter. And so we have a combination in this thing that we're doing where it's like the primary thing is avoidance. But as you said, if it turns and we've gotten ourselves so that we know that there's no other option, the next thing is to create as much injury as quickly as possible and get yourself out of the situation. There's cameras everywhere. We're in the land of suing. So not only do you lose if you get in a situation where you're in a fight, that you injure somebody and you get sued and you may be paying for them for the next however many years of your life, or you get injured, maimed, possibly killed, and you leave all the responsibility to families, or any kind of combination of that type of stuff. That's the whole thing of what we're trying to do with this is find something that's going to get you away, get you safe, de-escalate.
I am always looking for cameras. Like, I mean, my line of work, like the different things I was doing, I'm on the street. I'm like, there's one there. In restaurants, so I have different places where a guy was about to throw down. I'm like, look, man, there's a camera right there. They see us. I knock you out or whatever happens, like cops will be here. They'll know where we're at. They got cameras outside. They'll probably see our license plate. You really feel like dealing with cops in jail? Either way, one of us is going to get, you know, one guy was probably going to the hospital, the other guy's going to jail, you know, and there's like, oh man, it's not worth it. You know, you can't always guarantee that. Most of the guys out here in the military areas, they have a lot to lose. They get drunk and fired up. As soon as they realize like, hey man, like you're about to lose your whole career, you know, they're like, oh no, but you hang out with thugs in like San Diego or any other place that been to jail and don't give a shit. And you're like, see that camera, like, dude, you're going to be famous, motherfucker. Boom. And next thing you know, you're like, okay, that didn't work. You better be ready to defend yourself, you know? So there are people out there that don't care, you know? So, but it has helped. I mean, I've told them like, look, camera right there, bro. Is this really what it's, you know, we're on candid camera. And they're like, damn it. All right, forget it, you know? And they walk away. So it has helped.
Yep. Yeah.
Not always.
It's funny because that reminds me right there of like, Bobby's one of Bobby's main training partners back in the day. It was this guy, Ryan. I won't put last names on it right now, but you know, he actually went into become gang unit in San Diego. He's now, police helicopter operator. He and I started a program that lasted about somewhere between 6 to 10 years. What we did is we took gang kids and kids from financially distressed areas. We brought them in, started a boxing team. We'd have 50 kids at any time. The boxing team worked alongside the San Diego gang unit. They would volunteer, come in, work with the kids. And we had to socialize them and teach them like to work with members of other gang unit, of other gangs. They had to work with somebody from another gang. We were brought in, they had to be educated, they had to be in school, or one of the programs that we had a psychiatrist. We had a place up in LA that removed their gang tats when they were into it.
That's awesome.
And with the 50 guys, anytime you're doing that, there's moments where they could pull out a knife in the middle of our class.
Yeah.
These are rival guys.
You always open up on you. So you always have
to be situationally aware and keep your head on a swivel and your eyes on peripheral vision.
Yeah.
You know, we've done classes like that. And for the other guys that don't know, I worked with a group of FBI guys that had a program here for trafficked girls from 13 to 18.
Nice.
And that went for a while. We brought those girls in, and the stories I'd have in there where they were just taken out and sold into the locations. These were the ones that were found that came back, and the stories and the way that you train these kids is a whole different situation because they don't care about learning the regular thing. They're brought in the car. The first thing they do is they've been tricked by a boyfriend to get in, and they come to this little party, and all of a sudden they're pulled in the back room, hit with heroin, or they get in the car and just start punching this girl in the head and start to train them. I could tell some horror stories and stories that'll make you cry. Probably not you, but to a lot of people. Then I worked with Becky's house where we had people who were living on the streets, especially during COVID and all that type of stuff, where I remember a story of an 80-year-old lady that had been just sitting there and saying she couldn't do anything. She'd been raped 3 times in the last year and all that. One of the things that I did get out of this is when I took these kids in the programs, whether it was the trafficked girls from their program or the KTOTS program, keeping teens off the street, a lot of this is a loss of love. If you don't feel that somebody loves you, you can become a killer. There's one side of being paid and making the choice to go into that, or deciding that you love fighting and going into train. What we did, what I recommend instructors do, if they're working with these kids that have emotional problems. I had a program I started off in 2006 as the first YouTube channel to do adaptive self-defense. And that program carried all the way through for all the way up until COVID when they had to shut everything down. Right. We want to start that program back up again. We had 12 to 50 kids that are in that program. I would bring the gang kids in or the girls in, and they would work with these kids that had been in chairs their whole lives, cerebral palsy, spinal mental conditions, and they would apply the locks. And of course, these are not going to be stuff that every one of these kids are going to be able to do, but it's going to build their confidence. It's going to build their coordination. It's going to build their flexibility. This is what you got to also think about when you're doing this stuff. For the kids that were in the program, when they did something and a little kid would get all shaky and super, super hyper, they were so happy and so excited because these kids would hold on to them and hug them and love them truly. You have no idea. It was ridiculous. And so I thought that was one of the greatest things about tying these programs together and not just being a self-defense instructor that only teaches street fighting or only teaches women's self-defense. You got to move away to see things, work with different types of programs to really get a roundabout view of what's involved. Like I said, self-defense is not about every situation. When they say, I showed in one of the videos where one of the MMA guys, Devin, he's a coach, and he's grabbing, I'm showing some of the footwork and how to prevent somebody from doing locks or putting these wrist locks on. And you know that these wrist locks work. Like we put these lightning locks on. You're going down. I don't care. And people say, oh, I'd let go. But that's a difference. It's not MMA. It's not a trained guy backing out and spacing off and we're matching. If I break out, I'm trying to get the hell out. But if you're trying to manhandle me or you're trying to get me into a secondary location, this is where things like rhinos and using the joint manipulation, wrist locks, using all these types of things that may not work in sport fighting or street fighting. The same thing, as I say, you could be the greatest Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy and tie up with that guy. What are you going to do when there's 2 or 3 guys and you try to take it to the ground?
Yeah.
You're in trouble. It's a different situation. MMA guys, I saw like several MMA guys get their butt handed to them just here at the bars because they come in and they're like talking smack and they hit somebody in the bar and PB. It's a pretty local spot, man. And you come in and get smart and you think you're this new MMA world champ. We had a couple world champs go in and they just get handed because there's a lot of fighters here. And you may be great at your weight class, which is within 10 pounds, 5 years of age. You've got all these variables. You're both trained. No, when this guy got into it, he got his butt handed to him because, first of all, the bouncer took hold of him. And there's not just one bouncer. When we trained, I did the bouncer's tool box and trained most of the bouncers through San Diego. It's never one bouncer taking hold. We already have the door ready. We already have a rear door. We have somebody back up. We have somebody that could be a lifter. We have 2 guys that are putting their hands on you. We're covering every which way just in case people are covering your 6. You got to make sure there's no weapons coming out, guns. And I've had situations where we've had guns, knives when I did bouncing, bodyguarding, and all that type of stuff. I had that little executive security team that we did for a little while. It's all different with either your bouncer. Now, this stuff would also be good for people that are first responders or fire department bouncers, where you're not wanting to engage somebody. You're having to understand there's positions they can take. Here's how you can move to this position of safety. Here's how you can position yourself. I don't put my hands up like, oh, I don't want to do this, because if you're out of audio, that could be CCT looking like you're in a Muay Thai fight, right? Doing this stuff. Where if you put your hands down, you use a passive aggressive lean back stance, little things that you need to understand. There's cameras everywhere. There's people watching. Instead of getting into a fight, everybody's got a cell phone. Get your cell phone out, turn that on, record from across the street, and that helps. I was also asked to train all the guardian angels. We got a call from Curtis, who's the head of the guardian angels out of New York. He wanted me to run a program. It was too big a project to do, to get involved with. And he was going for governor of New York at the time. And this situational awareness comes in all kinds of things. You don't have to get in there and actually engage physically.
Like you just said, like firefighters, EMS, they go into a house and there's a domestic fight and you're treating the husband or the wife, whoever, and the partner jumps in like, well, maybe the cop turned his back for a second and you can't just knock them out. So maybe you got to be able to like wrap them up, lock them up, and just be like, stop. Okay, cop, get over here, do your job. And then they can kind of grab them without letting them go and have them charge the patient or the person who's, injured because they're pissed at them or whatever. To gear us toward Afghanistan, as you come into a room, it's like 2-person team. There's 4 or 5 people in the room, and you got one person that's the lady screaming at you, like the old lady, like, get out of my house, get out of my house. You got a little kid crying. You got like a guy like hostile, like, get the fuck out of my house, but he doesn't have a weapon. The other guy's kind of chasing and he's got a gun, and you're like, he's waiting for the opportunity. In war, it's a little different. Like I was doing that course with some cops, and we were like, you charge me, like, come at me when I got guns and knives all over me in Afghanistan to attack me, I'm just going to drop you. Like, boom, boom. I don't care. I'm not getting in a jiu-jitsu match with you there. The cops were like, dude, if I shoot that guy in the face, I'm having to report. I'm screwed. I'm like, yeah, that sucks, man. So again, you can't just smoke everybody who's, it's weird though, because you do see it on YouTube and movies or not movies, but in the news, sometimes cops shoot like unarmed guys that are just being combative because they don't feel confident in their own, hand-to-hand skills, sometimes, and they're just like, they escalate it and then they draw their gun. They're like, look, I ain't going to get killed today. I'm just going to if you come at me again, I'm going to shoot you. It happens on occasion, it's not all the time, but
for sure.
Happen. And I don't know. I feel like if you're all by yourself, the risks are higher. I have buddies that were SF guys and when I got out and became cops, and they would work in some of the worst areas and they just loved to scrap. Like they were like getting fights all the time with the guys, but now they were getting older. Like, bro, I've broken my leg. I've broken my hands. Like I'm not dealing with that shit. Now they have a canine with them and they're like, that guy gives me a hard time. Sick him, go. Like I'm not gonna, if I have to, I will. And I feel calm my abilities, but like, I'm not breaking my leg because like, I want to prove something anymore. My first jiu-jitsu instructor was a SWAT team commander for San Diego. And he used to love, he would go toe to toe with some of the guys, he said, back in the day, but he was just like, as I'm getting older, man, like the risk of injury is just too high. Like you're not as young and you can't bounce back as quick. Every time I grapple with guys or I go to the gym and I go somewhere and I roll, like I have a blast. I try to start off slow. I get into it a bit, but like, man, I'm usually sore like for like a week afterwards. And I know those young guys are like back in the next day doing it, like I just.
I'm sure you have it as well, but whenever you start off with a new student that comes in, gung-ho, especially these big guys, they always try to show how good they are. They're trying, but they do these joint manipulation things on me that I'm showing. There's a point where you're like, dude, I'm doing this. This is one of 8 sessions I have to do today. And I'm training 7 days a week. My shoulders are getting subluxed, dislocated all the time. My knees I can't take kicks to the legs anymore. I was holding the bags for so many years. I've just rattled the MCL, ACL, LCL, everything is messed up, and ankles have been rolled. Just as I was running downstairs to get some equipment today before this, I missed a step. There was a little bit of water on there, slipped down that one step and rolled an ankle. I'm like, just stupid stuff. And you don't bounce back. An injury that would take you a month to recover now takes you 3 to 6 months to recover. And this stuff's really great. What I want to do is I want to get into a regular conversation. What I was going to say about that is I think in those situations with the police officers, with guys that have to move somebody through a house, I did the water polo, U.S. water polo teams and the Jewish national team. I taught underwater grappling, which is great for lifeguarding and be able to learn how to disengage, but also to control somebody with joint manipulation. This is where the China aspect is really good, because most systems are just doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They don't really get into the China, which is the root of your grappling systems. When you have the combat China application, you see that these really do work. I think they would be very effective to be put into use for police department training, for hospitals. Say I've got some lady and she's got her baby that's in the building. She wants to run out. You can't just put her to the ground. You can't use jiu-jitsu. You can't put her in a choke. You're not going to put her in a full Nelson to walk her out.
No.
You could take her in one of our joint locks and one of our come-alongs and walk somebody out. They may have that position where it looks like their eyes are going to roll up in the head because of the pain.
Right.
But you don't need to break anything. You don't need to bruise anything. Right. You just need to take that pain tolerance, take control of them, and get them moving to a position where you can get back in and do what you had to do.
Exactly. Yep.
And get them to safety and keep everyone else safe at the same time. That's the thing that a lot of the Jing Shen programs do. I just today actually got a call from synagogues here in San Diego, because they're saying with all this uprise of the violence that's just been happening just today or yesterday on the 1-year anniversary, there was a whole bunch of commotion going on. So they've called me. We're going to go in and do some programs, some self-defense programs on this disengagement, situational awareness, not to have to engage and treat street fighting or these standard courses. So I hope you guys that are in here.
I heard about that in New York too. Something popped up.
That's where it was. New York went crazy.
Yeah, they were out offering like if guys come out and teach like some medical classes if they got shot up, and like stop the bleed classes, and then some basic martial arts classes. And they were having guys come out and do it. It fell through for me. I was busy doing other things, but someone offered that at one point, go out there, and there was some big rich guy out there who's going to pay for a bunch of guys to come out and teach his community how to like take care of themselves, like, because all this craziness that's going on. So I thought it was pretty quick.
That's a good idea.
You're smart on that.
We're going to be looking at doing sort of traveling programs as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to get onto a regular conversation with you, and also maybe get into rooms where we could do a little bit of footwork and talk some stuff in the martial arts, where we're back off this speaking head sort of position right here. But yeah, let's keep this going. Let's set up a regular thing.
Definitely.
For those of you guys that are seeing this, I've got my buddy Junior. He's living in Maui right now. So we're going to start doing traveling seminars throughout Hawaii, possibly Canada, maybe going up to North Carolina with you. And especially if you come back out here to San Diego, we could do some programs. We'll put out these programs, and we'd love to have people. All these areas that we go are great for staycations. So you can have like literally a weekend warrior sort of vacation, party with us in the evening, train with us in the day, get to know just like the old days. Let's see what we can do with this. We're making a pivot now into trying to turn this into a real channel and see where I can go with this. So thank you. This is the first podcast. And
Yeah, man,
I want
thanks
to
for
really
having me.
thank you for being part of it. I know we're getting close to that time where they're going to cut us off.
Yeah.
And I know you have to get back to what you're doing.
Yep.
Hey, cheers, man.
Yeah, man.
And
Appreciate
thanks again for everything you're doing and everything you've done with the military and everything you've done with me and how close you've been with me. We'll keep this going.
All right, man. Oh, yeah.